All right, for this section of deploying Java in Azure with PaaS services, we're going to demonstrate. I'm going to try deploying the Tika parser in a Docker container provided by the Apache project in Azure App Services on Linux. And the scripts I'm going to use are basically in the FreemanSoft Docker scripts. If you look down in the Tika area of FreemanSoft Docker scripts, then you can find the scripts I'm going to use for this. So there's a config. Basically, these are the scripts we're going to use for the Azure App Service. I apologize for the print size. It'll be bigger for everything else. So basically, we set up a config file that sets a couple variables, and then we run these scripts in order, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So script 0 is basically going to source some variables and then log in and set the account. That'll set us up for the terminal environment we're in. And that'll do that, and then that'll hang around for a while, and then we can run these other commands. This second file creates the resources for the app service. So it'll create a resource group and an app plan. This file lets you actually deploy the application, and in this case, it also sets the port for this. So this will actually deploy the app, and then this will set the port, and then this will echo out the URL. And then we can undeploy this, so we can actually run the 2 and 3 script continually while we play with it, and then 3 will undeploy. And then script 4 will actually delete the resource group, which you could really just delete the resource group and skip this step 3 here. Step 3 exists in case you want to undeploy and redeploy with different settings without having to recreate the resource group. So the way this is going to go down a little bit here is so I'm actually doing this in Visual Studio Code in a bash shell. You can set the default shell you want to run, and you can change it around a couple times. So in this one, I've actually got a couple bash shells and a PowerShell. So this is actually using git bash, I think, here. You can, anyway, you can use the Linux bash or git bash. So if we see where I'm at, we can see that I'm going to do bash Azure 0 setup. So this is actually, you don't want to run this like every time you do a deployment, because this is it'll actually set up your environment variables correctly for you. So you can see here that it's going to do that account. I'm going to pick my account I'm already signed in Azure. Yay. And we don't care about this. If we come back here, you can see this will tell us which subscriptions, and I didn't mean to show that. So now I get to hide all of that in the video. That's awesome. All right. So now we're going to create the resources, and we're going to do bash Azure 1. So it's going to create the FSI Tika resources, and that's because that's the name. You can pick the resource group named anything you want. You can see it puts it in the subscription here, so I'll have to delete that again from this. So if we go out here and we look at the console real quick, and we hit the resource groups, we can actually see that the FSI, FreemanSoft Inc. Tika resources group was actually created here. So we can look in that resource group and see what's been deployed in it. And the only thing I think we deployed, let's go and reload this and see what happens. And there we go. So we have an app service plan and we have a resource group. Okay, so now we're actually going to deploy the app. I just showed you that we created a resource group and we created the app plan. And now we're going to run the next script. So we're going to do bash. So this one here, we're going to create a web app and deploy it in the app plan. And this is a mistake. I probably set the variables wrong on this, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so I'm actually going to pause this because this actually takes a while, and I will pick up the video. All right, so that actually turned out to be really quick. Well, not as quick as that break was, but so I basically ran the scripts, and you can see that that script actually deploys it, and it changes the port that it's forwarding on. And I forwarded it on the 9998 port, so we could pick it up on port 80. And if we were to reload the resource group here, you can see that we had the plan, and now we actually also have an app service called FSI Tika. And if we go out and look, we can see the configuration for that. We can see the container settings, all that kind of stuff. So that app's actually deployed. It's pretty straightforward. You can see we've got a couple variables that were set here. And the only other piece that's probably really of interest is I can take this. All right, so something to remember when you do this is that these actually take a while to deploy. Your command actually replies when the app has been deployed, but it may not actually be fully hydrated. So we can see here that this URL that I had put up here before, when we do a get against it, Tika will show us all of the, this is basically the docs for all the APIs on that. So that's really all there is to it. So if we look back over, whoop, no, that's not where I wanted to go. I want to go here. If we look here, we can go to the resource group. We can go to the list of resource groups. We can go to the resource group that we're in. We can see in the resource group that we have an app deployed, a web app deployed, and then when we drill into that, we're there. So the only other thing to do is tear it down. So this will tear down the, or undeploy the app. So when we create the resources and then we deploy the app, we can undeploy the app and redeploy. And then when we delete the resources, I don't bother removing all the resources. I just delete the resource group and then all the other resources go with it. In this case, I want to be able to deploy and undeploy an app, like if I was making changes to it. So that's it. It's undeployed. And now if I were to go bash./Azure4, it'll actually delete all the resource. So deleting a resource group can take a while. So we'll pause. Okay. So you can see deleting a resource group can take a long time. That's my note. It would have said running here for a little while. Now the resource group has been deleted along with the app support. So really the only thing I wanted to point out here after this, so that's pretty straightforward, right? We create a resource group and an app service plan. And the thing I didn't point out before is that's where we can pick the location. We pick the resource group we're in, and we pick the operating system and which machine type we're going to use. So I said I'm going to use B2 machines, go provision those and deploy this. I don't really care how that happens. That's really where the costing comes from. So if you have a big app, you can size it up and down. It's still really a PaaS thing because you don't manage those machines. And then we actually just go and deploy the application, and then we change the config port. And that's it. And what you got to do is just wait a while for that to come up. I got impatient, and as soon as the script was done, I thought it was up, but it was still hydrating all those machines and setting the ports on them, that kind of thing. So that's it. I hope everybody got something out of that, and there'll be others in this series.